Firstly, I just wanted to say thank you to the Journal of Sport for Development and the award committee for considering my application, and thank you to everyone who's supported me throughout my sport for development research journey. There's been quite a few of you. In terms of how I broke into the sport for development sector, I was fortunate enough during my honours research year at Australian Catholic University to be offered the opportunity to research and evaluate a sport for development program called the Future and Youth Program in Timor-Leste, with Sandy, Alan Craig, Ross Smith and Anthony Whitty. That was a really invaluable experience in terms of getting, understanding the sport for development world, and some of the wonderful things that can happen. And that allowed me to then after that I was able to apply for my PhD at Swinburne, or La Trobe University, then Swinburne University, with Emma Sherry, as well as Katie Rowe at Deakin as my supervisors, and that was looking at the Huddle, which is a sport for development program of the North Melbourne Football Club. Both those opportunities, I learned a lot. I worked with some incredible people in terms of the participants. There's some really special people that I still think about, that I built relationships with over the years, colleagues that were involved in that in terms of my supervisors, but more broadly as well. And the organisations that supported me in that research, both locally and internationally. There's a lot of people that I'm thankful for. That was a really formative part of my journey in sport for development. In terms of why I chose the Journal of Sport for Development as an outlet for my research, firstly, most obviously, the focus on sport for development is really applicable given the research that I do and the sorts of context that I'm focusing on. It's a quality outlet in terms of it's now ranked. Also, it's an open access journal, which is really invaluable in this space. Sport for development really want to promote accessibility, and I think that's it's awesome that the journal is talking the talk and walking the walk in that regard, because it's a great way to share and distribute research more widely, not just with other researchers, but with industry and grassroots organisations. It's really important to make our research more accessible. In terms of an area of sport for development that I would like to explore further, we're seeing a lot of momentum in the professionalisation of sport for development. We're seeing a broader range and bigger range of organisations and sectors becoming involved in sport for development, and in different shapes and forms as well. So we're seeing a lot of innovation in sport for development because of that, which I'm really interested in researching. We're seeing different organisational forms, shifts in the boundaries of sport for development, as well as changes in the logics and priorities in association with that. And I find that really interesting. So, for instance, a lot of the professional sporting organisations, often masculine dominated environments, professional environments, talking about performance and income and market share, that sort of thing. But then you're bringing in these sport for development and social development logics and gender equity and those sorts of things, which are challenging. Unpacking the tensions around those shifts and evolutions, I'm finding really interesting. In terms of an area of sport for development that doesn't see sufficient research, it's not the most interesting answer I'm going to give you here, but long-term empirical research, we're not seeing enough of it. And I think PhD research and PhD candidates are going to be really vital to drive that moving forward. We really need to see more evidence of long-term impacts and outcomes of sport for development and pathways of participants potentially disengaging from sport for development and then re-engaging, how they might potentially be involved as change agents, as staff, driving monitoring and evaluation, that sort of thing. And then alongside that, I think we need to see more research around local monitoring and evaluation efforts, and processes, finding creative solutions, and as researchers working into that space to encourage pathways and local staff to help drive those efforts, I think is going to be really vital moving forward. In terms of what advice I would give other aspiring early career researchers in sport for development, collaboration is absolutely key, not just in terms of sport for development organisations, but as researchers we need to collaborate too with those organisations, with other researchers. I think collaborating in a way that you have mentors and people further ahead in their careers that you can sort of lean on and gain advice from, people at a similar stage, and even potentially people that are just starting out too, and having that sort of broad pathway and network, I think, is really vital in this space. Especially when we're looking to create creative, innovative and resourceful solutions and sustainable solutions. I think we need to walk the walk and talk the talk. And then I think alongside that, think about your purpose and your passion. Why are you doing this research? And really come back to that. I think we all want to see some form of social impact and social good in this space, but I think you really need to hone in and know what you want moving into it, so that when things get a little bit more challenging, you can remind yourself and your passion, your purpose in this space. In terms of the future of sport for development, I think we're seeing some really fast and interesting evolutions in terms of innovation. But I think we need to be careful of flattening the concept of innovation to be purely synonymous with technology, and sort of unpacking that a little bit, I think will be really interesting moving forward. In terms of that technology side, we're seeing some interesting evolutions in terms of AI, which could potentially have huge impacts and ramifications regarding accessibility and equity in the sport for development space. We could be having a bigger and higher quality impact if we leverage that the right way. Conversely, I think what we really need to also look at is inequities in that space too. Are we inadvertently, by making certain aspects of sport for development more accessible to some populations, are we inadvertently creating inequities by doing that as well? Are we going to potentially marginalise other groups through rolling out those technologies? So I think that's going to be really interesting moving forward. And then that sort of sits within that broader professionalisation of sport for development. We're seeing bigger organisation, more resources, different sectors being involved. And because of that, sport for development is being pulled in multiple different directions. So I think we need to sort of map that out and watch those evolutions moving forward. In terms of my favourite sport for development or project or initiative, I obviously have a really a soft spot for the Huddle at the North Melbourne Football Club and the Future and Youth Program at ACU, because of how formative they were on my pathway into sport for development. More recently, I've been doing some work with Tennis Australia. They've got a women leaders in tennis that sits in their National Women and Girls Strategy, and they've rolled that out through a few locations across the Pacific. But when I've done some work with them, I did a lot of work in Fiji and Vanuatu, and there's some really awesome women over there that I've worked with. I've got some fond memories of working in Fiji and Vanuatu with them. So yeah, thanks again to the Journal of Sport for Development and the award committee. Yeah, thank you.